All right. Well, thank you all for joining us for this third lecture and workshop presentation at the virtual lecture and workshop series, Bio and Psyche, Reading the Symptomatic Body. Bio and Psyche was originally planned as an in-person symposium to be held in May 2020. So for reasons I think you all understand, that didn't happen. So I am so happy that you're all joining us today virtually. And we want to thank the HRC, the Rice University Humanities Research Center, for allowing us to keep our funding to get this event going. And now I will pass this on to Sonia, who will be introducing our speaker.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. So my name is Sonia, I'm your moderator for this lecture. And I'd first actually like to thank the organizers of this event, Els Woodstra and Brooke Clark, because y'all have done so much to put this together and have continued to do an amazing job. And thank you to everyone in attendance. We have so much to look forward to. So today, President and founder of Día de la Mujer Latina, Ginés, will deliver her lecture, Compartiendo el Café y Chocolate, learning about emotional well-being and stress in the Latinx community, which focuses on the workshop she has developed through her organization. Following her talk, we may split into small breakout room sessions for follow-up conversation, or depending on how we're going, we'll just jump right into the Q&A. So to briefly introduce Venus Ginés, our esteemed speaker is a 29-year breast cancer survivor who survived cancer for the second time in 2017 after 25 years of survivorship. From her personal experience with cancer, her sister's untimely death to cervical cancer, Ms. Ginés founded Día de la Mujer Latina, a national nonprofit organization in 1997. This leading organization provides the medically underserved Latina community with culturally and linguistically proficient health education, as well as early detection screening for chronic diseases and culturally tailored preventative programs for Latino teens and patient-centered navigation. Ms. Ginés has also trained 4,212 promotores, or community health workers, in Texas alone. She's a state certified instructor of promotores, and Día de la Mujer Latina is the first approved bilingual Texas state sponsored certification training program. Through this program, she has trained employees of the city of Houston and Austin's paramedics, and even more recently, the employees of a federally qualified health center. In 2018, Ms. Ginés retired as a faculty member at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, teaching cultural competence and health literacy, as well as conducting research on Latino medical mistrust. She has continued to benefit academic spaces by developing groundbreaking bilingual training curriculum on subject matters that affect Latinas disproportionately, some of which have been included in colleges like the Autonomous University of Baja California Sur. Recently, Día de la Mujer Latina achieved the momentous goal of having the governor's proclamation declare April 16th, 2021, Promotores, or Community Health Worker Day, to honor community health workers who have served countless Texans in need. Ms. Ginés has appeared on and worked with multiple national and international news organizations such as CNN, Univision, and she has been featured as a part of Pfizer's Multicultural Center of Excellence, the International Gynecological Cancer Society, and Michelle Obama and Dr. Jill Biden's breast cancer awareness event in 2009. We are exceptionally fortunate and grateful to have you here with us, Ms. Ginés. Thank you for your time.
The pleasure is mine. So thank you so much for the invitation. And I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with my colleagues here on the call, so we can kind of clarify a little bit of some of the misinformation that's been going on in our Latino community. So I'm going to start with just a short little story here. The year was 1957. And in the tenements of Spanish Harlem, a 28-year-old Puerto Rican single mom feels pressured into making an important decision: either undergo la operación, which is a surgery that was supposed to keep her from unplanned pregnancies, or risk losing her welfare benefits. Rosa was alone in this country with limited reading and marketable skills and only an 8th grade education. She was raising a little girl with no child support from her ex-husband. She had no choice but to accept her doctor's recommendation. He said it would just be tying up the tubes. So she thought it was just when the time came that she wanted to have children again, they would just untie her tubes. Rosa died at 56, having failed to detect her liver disease in time because she was so resentful of the doctors in duping her into this surgery, because she was 34 when she finally met the man of her dreams and she was ready to have a child. And that's when she found out that her surgery was permanent. And for this reason, years later, you know, the women in our community would get together and talk. But Rosa made sure that her daughter learned never to trust doctors in this country. And Rosa was my mother. So I grew up in this atmosphere of you can't trust the doctors in this country. You can't trust any kind of government programs because they are here to use us as experiments. And that does cause a lot of stress and anxiety in many of our Latinas. And, you know, for many years, even though I was insured, I had a great job, I spoke English, I was college educated, I never went for my yearly mammogram. And at the age of 41, I had an accident on the job and ended up in the emergency room. And it was there that the doctor just happened to ask me if I had had a mammogram. I still didn't even know what he was talking about, but when he started talking a little bit more about the fact that it's important for us at 40 to start having these type of annual exams, I felt, I actually could hear my mother's voice, don't trust the doctors, they just want to use this as experiments. And I just said, okay. So at that point, he started talking about cancer. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, do you think I may have cancer? And he said, no, it's just that, you know, it's better for you to go ahead and detect early. So if you want, while you're here in the emergency room now, mind you, while you're here, I could do a clinical breast exam. And it was that clinical breast exam at that moment that he said, I feel a lump on your left breast. And sure enough, even though he said that, I walked out thinking, well, you know, it's probably a fluke. I don't want to be one of those Latinas that succumb to all these experiments. I don't want to be a guinea pig. So I went home. I had plans to start law school at UNC Chapel Hill Law School. I started to pack. And then I got the phone call. This was like about 4 days later, I got the phone call. He says, you know, we did an additional test when you started telling us about your fatigue and everything. And I just want you to know that you tested positive for lupus. And I said, what is lupus? At that point, even though, again, I was educated, my health literacy level was really low. And it is for this reason that from that moment on, I found out that I had breast cancer, that I had, there was very little statistics on breast cancer in Latinas. In fact, back then it was Black, white, and other. And the other, they will pull in only one state, the state of New Mexico, to get the data on Latinas and breast cancer. And back then they were using the term Hispanic, which in New Mexico, you have Hispanics, but the rest of the country, you have Latinas. So it's totally, and that's another subject that I'll go into later. But the important thing here is the fact that, you know, for years, research has failed to reach out to our communities to hear our stories, to hear what we're thinking about. They only go by, and I love research, but they actually go by the standards, what has been done before, and they pull in some information here and there. They'll go to one community, and then all of a sudden that community speaks for the rest of the country. And that is what has placed us in a situation that we are in today, where a lot of this misinformation about Latinas and Latinos and the fact that our Latinx community is not going out for COVID testing or vaccine, it's really sad because it's not true. We're getting all the calls. People just want access. So there's a lot of disparities because of the misinformation, but also because of the stereotype that we have been inflicted with because of poor research way back in the 70s. So for this reason, I met with a friend of mine. We had just, we were going through a lot with Hurricane Harvey, and I met a colleague of mine She was going, she did a lot of work in Louisiana for Katrina. And we shared stories, and she said she came up with a program called Ubuntu. And for this reason, I went back to one of our funders and I said, you know, I love her program, the Ubuntu program. I would like to bring it to kind of transition it to for our Latino community. And it's looking at the ways that we see stress, how it affects our community, how it affects the mind, body, spirit. And it's really a beautiful story, the way that Ubuntu started back then. And I'll give you a link to some of the information on Ubuntu, but the main thing that you have to remember is the fact that a lot of the people are still suffering in Louisiana, in New Orleans because of Katrina, just like we are here in Houston because of Harvey. We are an exceptional group of people because we're very diverse. Both communities are very diverse. So what is Ubuntu? Ubuntu means I am what I am because of you. So these stories and shared experiences offer explanation for the events in our lives that can cause us stress, including traumatic events like family conflicts, violence, and racism. And that adds to our everyday stress, and we don't even realize it. So this storytelling framework is used to teach community morality and to provide people of African and Latino descent with a sense of individual and collective identity. So I'm going to start with, the first part of Ubuntu. I think the slides are up already.
.15, so if you'd like to stay after, we can take some questions. Else?
Sorry, I meant to clap. I think I raised.
Oh, I thought you just really were anxious to ask a question. We have some great comments. Thank you. It's been a remarkable personal journey. Thank you for sharing. Melissa says, Martha says, it's been a wonderful presentation. Some people are having to go. But for the people staying, do you have any questions that you would like to ask?
And I'll put on the chat our website if you want to, if anybody is interested in learning more about what we're doing.
Yes, Martha had a question. Is the group active in what cities is Dia de la Mujer Latina active in? So that link will help a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If you go, you'll see the map of where we've been, where we are still working, and in the cities that we're working with, not only in Texas, but we're working nationally and in Puerto Rico and in Mexico. So yes, yes, absolutely. And I do have some books that have helped me a lot. So I will go ahead and gather some of those and send them to you, Els, so you can share it with the others. But Marianne Williamson, I'll be, if you can get a book, Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love, is probably has helped me through my journey, through divorce and through cancer and through a lot of things. A Return to Love is a fantastic book. She's a spiritual guru, and I've enjoyed her immensely, all her books.
I have a question. I would love to hear about how Dia de la Mujer Latina kind of became an idea and then a reality. And there's just so few organizations like that, especially in 1997. So it'd be great to hear kind of the maybe origin story a bit.
Sure. Well, I was the envoy to Mexico during the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta. And so working with the Mexican consulate, I was invited to all of their festivals, and I asked him one day, I said, I love these festivals. Do you think we can do a festival like this and just focus on health? And he said, well, he says, you find the doctors and the hospitals interested, and I'll bring the food and the mariachis. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. And I gathered some of my friends at CDC, because CDC is right there in Atlanta. And we all gathered in my living room, and we all started putting together the first Dia de la Mujer. I said, I want a day dedicated to my mother, who died because she just never went back to the doctor to get any kind of care because of misinformation and mistrust. But and my sister, who died, of cervical cancer, the same thing. Mistrust, that I felt that we needed to do something in their honor. And so we did it, we used May because it was the weekend of Mother's Day. And we only had one hospital participating, and we had about 250 people that showed up. The next year, we decided to, we did a little bit of kind of an environmental scan here. We started talking to some of the folks in the different community college hospitals, and then we had more people coming in. The third year, we had about 357 people that we registered. But by the fourth year, we had thousands. And it was unbelievable because word got out of what we were doing. We were not only providing free PAP and clinical breast exams, we had, by the fourth year, we had 12 mammography vans available. We had, and it took off, you know, but I named it the Dia de la Mujer Latina for it to be that one day where, you know, the woman who is the focal point of the family, the decision maker, to have that day just for her. So we had one area where they were doing their nails. We had, for everyone who had a clinical breast exam or PAP, we had somebody doing hair. I mean, we had all kinds of, but it was a fiesta. And we had it at this huge movie theater that they loaned us a movie theater for a lot of the screening. But it was important to say that when I started this, my friends said, you've got to say Day of the Latin American Woman, because no one's ever going to fund you, take you seriously, unless you use something in English, you use the name in English, translate it into English. And I said, no. People are going to have to learn to say Dia de la Mujer Latina. There's going to come a time when people are going to say Dia de la Mujer Latina, and it's going to roll out of their mouth, and it's going to be fine. So here we are. We're on our 25th year. We're going into our 25th year, and even the researchers, even they may stumble, but one of the things that I mentioned to my students at Baylor is, you know, Mujer Latina was the one that they really had a difficult time. So I would say, okay, you know, what is this on my head? You know, hair, you know, and what does a cow say? Moo. So you put those together, mujer. So that, you know, these are the ways that I taught my students on how to learn a little bit more about our culture. So year after year, I kept increasing, and then I started really gathering some good data, and I presented this in Washington. And then next thing I know is that so many states wanted me to come and help them set up this health fiesta. And so, you know, 39 states later, we grew. We grew pretty quickly, and they all. But I put together a promotora training back in 1997. It was the first promotora training, and the folks at CDC helped me with it. And the next thing you know, we have this huge promotora training it's grown, you know, right now. And then the community health worker is a promotora. She just speaks Spanish. So when I came to Houston, it was kind of one of those things where in Texas, it was a certification program, and I had to immediately go for approval. And we were the first organization, Latino community-based organization approved by the state of Texas to train and certify. So it came from that very modest time period, gathering my girlfriends and moving this forward in honor of my mother and my sister. And now we are, you know, all over.
It's incredible. Thank you so much. We have about 3 minutes, so there are a bunch of people still on. Does anyone want to ask a question? Anybody who's still here? Yeah, go ahead, Roxana.
Thank you for your presentation. I enjoyed and for all the things you have done for the Latino community. I wonder how can you become a promotora?
Well, we have a class right now. In fact, tomorrow we graduate that class. I graduated already. Now we started a new class last Saturday. We're going to have another class in September. We actually received funding because my training has been really, thank you God, so successful. HRSA, which is a federal agency, provided us with an award 4 years ago. So we have been training more promotoras and community health workers free of charge, but they had to have the age criteria that HRSA put on us. Because they wanted them to become behavioral health peer support specialists. And but it was from that we developed 3 new careers for promotoras and community health workers. One is the telehealth community navigator, the clinical trial community navigator, and the behavioral health community navigator. So those are 3 careers that our organization put together for to launch for community health workers. So in September, we'll start a new class. So, you just check on our website and we would love to have you there.
Thank you. I speak Spanish.
Great, that's great. Yeah, we have the training in Spanish and English.
We have time for maybe one more question. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you so much for your talk,
Sure.
your presentation. It was absolutely incredible. I know that we're all really grateful and fortunate to have been able to hear you speak. Lots of thank yous and great comments in the chat.
Thank you for the invitation, and anytime I can share, again, sharing stories is really important. We just don't do that enough. And we just pull all this stuff on our shoulders and carry it with us. Telling stories, it helps a lot of people.
Yes, totally.
So thank you. Hasta pronto. Adios.
Thank you
Adios.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.